This is Beyond Category, and I'm Eric Felten. We're here at the Bethesda Blues and Jazz Club in Bethesda, Maryland. It's an old movie palace turned into a jazz spot, and playing here tonight is Trombonist Delfeayo Marsalis and his quartet. On the piano is Ellis Marsalis, the patriarch of the Marsalis family. They're going to be here tonight, but we get to check them out right now. Delfeayo and Ellis Marsalis, you are all so recognized as key musicians in the New Orleans scene. What makes New Orleans so important to jazz in America?
Louis Armstrong. In a word, you know, there are other elements involved, but for the most part. You know,
and Louis Armstrong, of course, born in New Orleans.
Right.
And what was it about New Orleans that Armstrong soaked up and then brought to the world?
In the South, you know, when the Africans came over and onto the plantations, and then you have the Europeans, you had this one big family of people who were trying to figure out how to work things out. And, you know, to me, that African element is one of always joy and optimism, and that's what Armstrong really embodied. And jazz itself really, the great thing about New Orleans is that celebration. You know, now we just say we like to have a party, but it's that sound, and you hear it through Charlie Parker, and you hear it through, you know, Dizzy Gillespie and all these guys. They really captured that spirit, and that's what we try to really capture when we play.
How is the New Orleans jazz scene at this point? You know, the last time I was in town, which was a few years ago, you'd hear a lot of very loud electric funk coming from every bar. How much room is there in New Orleans for old school New Orleans music?
Not a lot of the younger players are learning how to play that old style.
Most of the places, they have brass band or funk-based music, the loud electric music that you referred to, and they keep the cover charge low. So it's difficult. You know, I'd say the musicians have kind of that love-hate relationship with not the city itself, but with, I guess, their place in the city.
What can you play for us next?
We're going to do an original composition, and this is from our new CD, The Last Southern Gentleman. This is entitled The Secret Love Affair.
Delfeayo and Ellis Marsalis. Ellis, you had such an impact in New Orleans through doing jazz education. What did you learn through that process about how to teach jazz?
How to survive had very little to do with pedagogy. To get the spirit of jazz, as well as the elements that make up the improvisational part.
Delfeayo, you've talked about how a lot of kids coming up in the jazz university setting don't really learn how to entertain a crowd and how to put the music across.
Well, a lot of the problems stem from the misunderstanding about especially John Coltrane and his method. And I guess the idea is if you study these techniques and if you learn this type of harmony, then you'll be a great jazz musician. But they forget the fact that Coltrane grew up playing with Johnny Hodges. And then before then he played with
Earl Bostic.
You know, so he really had kind of a funk gig. So there's a real important, the rhythm and blues and the funk gigs are really important to develop the groove. And every great jazz player has come out of a great group. It's never been a guy went home and practiced, then he came out all of a sudden he was a great player. So what we try to encourage is for the students to not only play with groups, but also to play in front of people.
What could you do next for us?
Okay, maybe we'll pick it up a little bit and do a little bit of that speak low.
Delfeayo and Ellis Marsalis. Delfeayo, you've been involved not only as a musician but as a producer, and well known for your knowledge of how to record in a way that gets a great sound. Technology seems to be moving so fast now in music that it seems that it risks overtaking music.
What people love most is interaction with other people. So I remember when I was at Berkeley, they were talking about maybe the computer will just play music. And I would equate it to when they had the Jeopardy contestants play against the computer, and the computer just won hands down. Well, people are not going to watch that more than one time. We're not going to, because it's the idea that these humans are not only competing, but they have to bring something out of themselves. And that's the great thing about the music. So I think the technology, it will never, there's no way for it to actually take over, because it's that human element that people really enjoy.
I don't think that anytime soon you're going to go maybe to New York and see the New York Philharmonic with a lot of electric instruments and replacing the clarinets and the violins, the violas and all. I don't really think that that's going to happen.
tour you're doing now and the new record, The Last Southern Gentleman. What's the title about?
The idea is that, Southern manners, as we know it, Southern hospitality actually comes from Africa. And when the Africans came over, that was what they really brought. And what we find is in the institutions, the importance of the African descendants in jazz is actually being marginalized a lot. It's almost like, you just need to learn these skills. But we're saying, man, it's the spirit, it's that groove, it's that vibe. And that's what the older musicians, Louis Armstrong, Kid Ory, they were about the community and the celebration of life. So the idea is that that's what the Last Southern Gentleman would represent. And we want to bring that particular element, I'd not say bring it back to the music, but make sure that it's maintained.
Maybe we could get together and do something on trombone together and see what two trombones sound like.
All right, what about a little bit of that C-Jam blues?
Oh, some great Ellingtonia.
I'd like to thank Delfeayo and Ellis Marsalis and Bethesda Blues and Jazz for hosting us today. But most of all, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I hope you'll join us again for more good music on Beyond Category.